All right, here he is, Steve Christie, legend of the game. He's going to lead the charge on Sunday late afternoon at Hallmark, and I think the weather's supposed to be really nice, Steve. Like, I thought I saw early, like low 50s for the game, which is pretty good for this time of year, especially for a guy coming from Florida to do this.
Yeah, we were kind of worried about the weather coming up and the conditions, but yeah, that sounds pretty nice considering excuse me, it was pretty warm when we left Florida.
What what's your level of excitement for doing this? And have you practiced your where would you rather be right here, right now?
I got a couple of things to say. But yeah, really excited. Firstly, great win over Kansas City. There's a group of us from Buffalo that meet in Lakewood Ranch. And long story short, we had a storm going through. The tiki bar that we meet at has a certain provider that relies on satellite. We lost the feed. We ran back to my buddy's house. We all sat there, and as the last play unfolded, that's the first thing I said was the wide receiver did not check in with the sideline judge. Had he done so, good chance we would have lost that. So rookie mistake to our benefit for once. Certainly after a tough loss against Philly, and then seeing what Dallas did to Philly, I mean, this weekend's going to be another pressure cooker.
Yeah, for sure. Have you, by the way, and I want to go back to the Kansas City game in a second, but do you recall any time in recent history, or even when you were playing, how tight, like the AFC is ridiculous. There's like 2 games separating like 10 teams or something. It's crazy.
And some of the teams weren't in the conversation earlier on in the season, like Cleveland. I mean, there's a bunch of teams now that are kind of eking up into where we are and challenging our potential wild card spots. So yeah, you're right. I mean, this whole conference is now, apart from a couple teams, this whole conference is getting really, really tight and scary for us.
Yeah, and it's nuts too because at 5-5 we were like, okay, we got Kansas City, at 5-5 we still had the Jets, the Eagles, Kansas City, Dallas, and then of course the last game of mine we're like, oh my God, murderers row, this is going to be brutal. And of course we beat the Jets, we lose the Eagles on the side one, and we beat Kansas City. But at that time when we were 5-5, we're like, look, they have to take care of their own business, obviously, but they need some help. And man, Pacheco didn't play for Kansas City. Then they make the bonehead play at the end of the game. And then Herbert breaks a finger. He's out for the year for the Chargers. And Miami loses with 3 minutes left in the game and a 2-touchdown lead. That was crazy. So they're getting all kinds of help here at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you look at the schedule, as I always did, even as a player, I always looked at the schedule because my roommate, our punter, Chris Moore, and I would pick out, okay, where are the dome games and what time of the year are we getting them, right? Because coming out of Buffalo, I always look for the dome games. But then obviously you look at the competition, and I still do it. And, I was sending it to a bunch of my buddies just saying, look at the last bit of our schedule and obviously closing out in Miami, which could be a massive game for both teams.
For sure. And I would suspect that if you're in South Florida, you're going to be there, I would suspect.
We're about 3 hours if we drove across. We're kind of waiting. It's becoming more and more hostile.
Yeah.
Bills fans, I mean, obviously we show up. We represent, but it's getting tougher and tougher. We're kind of like, I don't know. It's so much easier for us to hang out at home.
Right? And it was easier when they weren't good or we weren't good, right? You basically just went down. Yeah. If you were from Buffalo, you went down there for a vacation, and there just happened to be a Bills game, right?
Exactly. Now it's getting pretty serious. We're getting really serious now, which is great because the rivalry's back. The old days of Jim Kelly versus Dan Marino. We're getting that flavor again, which is fantastic. That doesn't mean we have to go. That's all I'm saying on that.
Right. So yeah, the old days of you against Olindo Mare.
Sure.
Is that was that the kicker they had back then? I don't even know.
Stojanovic and then Mare.
Stojanovic, right? Yeah, that's right.
Good players back then, for sure.
Hey, so I got to ask you a couple quick kicking questions. So obviously at the end of the first half, dilemma for Bills, right? Do you try a 62-yard field goal in Kansas City where, grass field, It didn't seem like the weather was really terrible. It seemed like it was okay, not a lot of wind. Or do they go for the Hail Mary? And they chose to go for the Hail Mary. What goes through your head if you're the kicker and there's that opportunity to, and we all know, I think Bass has a really big leg. So what is the kicker thinking when that comes up?
I think in that scenario, I mean, I had a long one against Miami when I first got to Buffalo. I was 59, but it's the same situation. It's like, it's a long one. The ball may come out a little bit lower because you've got to get the distance. But Bass has the leg. So, that's a coach's decision. I mean, being a kicker, I would have put Bass out there. I'm confident that Bass would have made it. I'm sure every kicker in the league thinks they're going to make it. So I'm on the side of, go for the 3 with the understanding that, hey, it's a long one. And, the odds are that, it's not a chip shot. It's not a gimme. But the 3 points would be huge. And as far as the momentum gain for making a kick like that, it's also, it's going to make an impact.
Hey, why do you think distance is different in 2023 compared to what it was when you were kicking? I mean, guys are routinely making 57, 58, 59, some 60-yard field goals like it's nothing, and clearing by 10 yards, some of them. Why is it seemingly different now? Is it training? Is guys stronger, or
guys are stronger, but also there was a period there where the league had kicking footballs that they couldn't break him in. They were out of the box. They were awful. And I'm not making excuses for us, but I'm just saying things have changed a lot. I look at the footballs now, and you could play rugby with them. They've been worked in. They're rubbed down. They're really, really, they're not out of the box like what we had, and that does make a difference.
How about the kid? I mean, speaking of the Cowboys, I mean, here's their kicker, who was a number 1 first round overall, or I don't know if he was number 1 overall, but a first round pick in the MLS draft. He's like, nah, I gotta go play football.
Oh, I'm all for it. And what did he hit, a 60 or was it longer?
He hit 260s.
And I remember seeing the one, and he made, I mean, that could have close to 70. He crushed it.
Yeah.
He absolutely crushed it. I mean, you get certain guys like that are soccer players. And, I was at a conference up in Toronto, and somebody said, why did you stop playing soccer? And I said, because you got to run around for 9 minutes, and I can impact a game kicking a football in 1 second.
Right.
That's the difference. Right then and there, I mean, obviously different sports, but one translates into the other. And I mean, I was very excited to see him do so well down there in Dallas.
What's your feeling overall about the Bills right now? I mean, we've talked about it all year here in Buffalo that, they have played to the level of their opponent. In other words, they played really well against really good teams and really lousy against really bad teams, which is, I don't know if that's good or bad, but knowing that going into the Dallas game and maybe at the end of the year against Miami, it's probably a good thing. But then, those middle games, New England's a divisional game. Like, what's your vibe, your heart? What are you thinking about this team right now?
The last few years, or even longer than that, you're right. We've had a tendency to play with our competition. And I think this year we beat, I think it was Washington handily. And I said, there you go. That's the way we should be beating teams like that. So from that game, I thought, okay, here we go. So I worry about games like New England. I worry about the games, like a team like the LA Chargers, because these are teams that we should beat, but we should beat them handily, knowing that our competition is so much greater, going into, say, Miami or next weekend against Dallas. Tough games. And you know what? If we should beat a team by 20, then let's do it. Knowing what's coming ahead, knowing that the competition ahead of us in this schedule is going to be top notch. We got to make an impact, and we got to ride at a certain level.
Do you have any level of hatred toward the Cowboys?
No, they beat us. I was in the last 2 Super Bowls with the Bills there, and they beat us fair and square. That's the way I look at it. I don't hate them for beating us. They had a great team. I mean, they had a great team.
Yeah. Although, and they also had Jerry Jones.
Well, hey, he's part of the package. What are you going to do?
That's right. That's very well put. He's part of the package. What do you? I know you're up here because you're also a part-time actor. and Pitchman. So when you do come up to Buffalo, where do you like to go? Where do you like to hang out? Who do you like to see? And what are you going to do this weekend when you get back?
Well, obviously, I will be shooting more commercials at Lake Effect Furniture. That's part of the deal. We always coincide, a Bills trip, Bills game with, hey, Steve's in town, Chris Shunk, the owner. And by the way, I'm not the owner. Chris Shunk, the owner, said, Steve, you're in town. I'm going to grab you for a day. And I get with my buddy Vic at Enrich Marketing, and we'll shoot a commercial. We have a number of appearances lined up. It's always full. Like, we always have a great time with that and catching up with friends and family, and then a little bit of work in there too.
Awesome, man. Well, we look forward to seeing you, and we appreciate your couple minutes. And I know you're on your way up. You're in the middle of your trip as we speak. So safe travels the rest of the way. And again, thanks for doing this. We look forward to seeing you when you get up.
Thanks, Bill. Good to see you.
All right, man. You too. Legend of the game, Steve Christie, joining us.